Alright, time for another DraftPhysics.com, DebatePhysics.com, also video presentation. So this is a response video to Sabine Hossenfelder, who I've just come to hate. But anyway, it's just so bad. They're just so despicably duplicitous. Anyway, so she titles the video, "Did we get the double slit experiment all wrong?" And it's not a double slit in this illustration, and it certainly isn't one with photons. So the icon itself says dark photons, yet this is the electron kind of pattern. So photons don't do this. Okay, they always create a double maxima. So that's just wrong not to have the double maxima here. And this is a single slit pattern technically. Okay, a real double slit with open slits doesn't create this pattern. So they can't even get the icon right. And they're claiming to fix what they've screwed up in the past, or ignored in the past. And it's just so bad. I mean, there's nothing you can say. It's just garbage. This is junk science, frankly. I haven't played it, so I thought it would be just worth seeing what the fuck this will be about. So let's first look at the drawing and just make sure you understand, okay, that there's two patterns you can make. All right, with slits, okay, with 2 or 4 slits, 1 or 2 slits, however you want to describe it. With surfaces, let's just say with surfaces. So you can use an impediment that has 2 surfaces, or you could use an open slit, and you will get this pattern. Okay, the little blue pattern here. You get a double maxima and then nodes drifting off. And if you did it on a round surface, you'd find that the nodes actually get bigger and bigger and bigger as you go around, and there's geometric rules that oblige that to happen, and it's not an infinite pattern. And the fact is, exactly how many wavelengths of light fit between this distance will decide exactly how many of these little dots you will create. You just multiply the number by 2, and because it's 2 patterns, and that'll tell you exactly how many of those little dots will be created. And the double slit experiment is better termed the 4-surface experiment. So where this is the 2-surface experiment, that is, you can have an impediment, 2 surfaces, or a slit, 2 surfaces on the inside. The 4-surface experiment is really better called the 4-source experiment, because you can really understand that all that's really happening is each one of these surfaces is sending material. And when all 4 sources are in phase, that is, there's a wavelength of difference, okay, between 2 of the sources, any 2, you get a photon. And when they're out of phase, no photon. So when all 4 sources are proportionally a wavelength of difference, that is, if something was to be thrown from these locations, it would all land at the source at the same time, at the target at the same time. That's the argument, okay? And if it doesn't land at the same time, then it's going to be out of phase. And so it's simple geometry, and the fact is that the smallest dimension between 2 surfaces, the smallest distance, ends up describing exactly what size this envelope pattern will be. And the largest distance between 2 surfaces, that number of wavelengths will tell you exactly how many of these little dots there's going to be. Exactly how many. Just multiply it times 2. There's 2 patterns. And so the reason why there's a double maxima in the center is because there's 2 nodes overlapping. That's why there's a double. So, and it always comes out this way. The center maxima, when you have a real open slits, will always be an odd number. So it'll always be 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. And it'll always be basically twice minus 1 of the node size. Always. So that's already something that somebody could dissect by looking at this, a scientist who paid any attention. Now, I'm not really a scientist, and it took me a while to figure it out because I didn't have all that background. And, you get distracted by their nonsense and start thinking photons really are mush and not real substance. And the argument is that all this is really about is a kind of a Morse code. A photon is a sequence of bits of energy at a frequency, and all you're really saying is that I hit the surface with bits of energy at the right sequence, ... instead of ... or something else. And that's all it's really about. There's no interference, there's no superposition, and there's certainly no entanglement, and there's no wavicles, and there's no wavicles, and there's none of that crap. And it's really understood as photons are essentially broken by surfaces. There's electrons moving in and out of the surface. The photon interacts with the electron. Part of it gets deflected. So there's a bunch of scatter at the surfaces. And there's a 50-50 chance that the scatter is either going in phase or out of phase. And that's all there is to it. All right, now let's play this stupid video. Shit. I mean, this is just so obnoxious. I have to spend 10 years doing this, more than 10 years now. And you can't get a counter argument from these scumbags, these scummies for science. You can't get a rational response to anything arguing against their nonsense.
Did we misunderstand the double slit experiment?
Yes, you did, completely. It was all nonsense. This whole Bohr model is nonsense. Einstein's fucking wooey space is nonsense. I mean, it's just nonsense all the way down. Everything is wrong. Kinetic energy is wrong. Everything, single thing you believe about physics is wrong.
The most famous experiment in quantum physics.
Right, and so the most famous and the most misdescribed, sloppily described experiment in physics. What the fuck is this an image of? I mean, it's just, what the fuck, it's not that complicated a pattern. I mean, you can, and if you do it exact, you get very exact dimensions. That is, if your impediment between the two slits is exactly the same as the distance that the slits are open, you'll get such a clean pattern. It's just so I mean, there's so many ways they could do this experiment and really pick at it and pull out the truth, and they just don't. They just talk about it and then draw squiggly lines and just say, yeah, it makes a squiggly pattern. Duh. And again, all these other experiments that prove the case, radio waves create an interference pattern when the two waves never interfere with each other, never cross each other's path.
We usually interpret it as proof that light is both a particle and a wave, the essence of quantum physics.
Yes, the essence of nonsense. So just complete idiotic, contradictory. It should scream right at you, this can't possibly be the right answer. It is yes and no. It is red and green. It is, I mean, it's wet, it's dry. I mean, stupid. It's a scientist should say, oh, forget that. Let's try again.
Yet in a new paper, a group of physicists disagree. It can all be explained by particles, they say.
Yes, it can, but they probably aren't going to do it right.
And this paper appeared in PRL, which is basically the top journal in the field. So let's have a look. For the double slit experiment.
So again, they just have this wavy crap going through. Doesn't happen. Young's diagram doesn't work. Two waves coming out of the center of these slits will not mathematically work. The only math that works is to recognize the distance between the two furthest surfaces and the distances between the two closest surfaces, and that's the only thing that's going to get you the right pattern. And if you have the two slits so close together that the 2 point sources can't possibly, they don't have a wavelength of difference here then there can't be a wavelength, a full wavelength of difference anywhere else. So it can never create interference. So if you have a slit 2 closed, it can't create any interference pattern because it can't change the phase of any of the energy. It's not possible. Pythagoras knew that.
Directs laser light at a plate with...
So this image is a what? What is this? Laser light with a what?
2 microscopic slits. That's the double slit. On a
So let's just, it keeps blinking on and off. Let's see if
screen
it does it
behind the
again.
slits, one
And I have to freeze it to see what the... Let's see if they get... Oh, you can't do the incremental thing with the... Too bad. All right, I'll have to just
then
try to
decent.
stop it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, at least they get the 5 part right. So why don't they show the whole pattern? If you have 5 there, then on either side, okay, there has to be 3.
Interference pattern. That
So they're not showing the rest of the pattern. They're just showing you a piece of the pattern, and they're not even doing the logical thing, which is to say, well, obviously the distance from this surface, the further surface, to the other further surface, that's deciding how many of these little dots there are, and all you're saying is this is the one where 2 of the sources, okay, aren't in phase. It's only getting photons from one of the sources, the surfaces. 2 surfaces are creating, and the other 2 surfaces are out of phase. And so there's not enough photons here. But there's still photons here. It's just not enough to see them. Okay, compared to the brightness of the other ones, they're too dim. But they're still landing there.
is bright and dark regions. This is a typical wave phenomenon that you
So it's not typical. As you can see from raindrops, it's not typical at all. A single raindrop does not create any interference. There's no interference pattern created by a single punk. And a single slit won't create any interference in water. There's no, I open a single slit in water, I don't get any interference pattern. So again, nonsense. No fringes are created. So it's just rubbish, bullshit, nonsense.
can also see in water waves or sound waves. Light from both slits adds on top of each other, and where crest
Says you, says you, says you, says you, with absolutely nothing but you saying so.
goes on top of trough, the light cancels out, so that's a dark spot.
So there's no canceling, nothing interferes, there's no canceling. It's either in phase or out of phase. You either throw the baseballs, okay, at a wobbling tower, either throw them in a sequence that adds energy, that is, you hit them when the thing is wobbling in the right direction, and you don't throw it when it's wobbling back the other way. You throw it when it's going down, you hit it again. So you either hit it in the compatible with its resident frequency, or you don't. And that's the difference between a photon that we can collect and a photon we can't collect. It's the baseballs are still hitting. It's just when the ones are in the right sequence, then they'll cause it to tip over. If they're in the wrong sequence, it doesn't tip over. It's that simple. And I'm going to die before these assholes, okay, will even listen to the counter argument.
Where crest meets crest or trough meets trough, they add up, and that's a bright spot. Why does one need laser light? Is it just that physicists really, really like lasers? They do, but one actually does need the laser light.
Well, that's all not true, because all you do is, again, you could just create the old days, you created a single slit to kind of force the light to all be moving in parallel. So you just used a single slit and forgot about the fringes it creates and just used the light that goes straight through and doesn't get fringed.
because you need the phases of the light, that is the places where there are crests and troughs, to all be the same. Otherwise they add up and cancel in random places and you don't see the pattern. But now we can reduce the intensity of the laser light until there are only single quanta of light.
Okay, so they're saying so. So now they're saying that they can create a single photon laser. Okay, well, I think I call bullshit. And regardless, no, they really can't do it. So it's just bullshit. And the whole point is that the light is in a form that can be, it's still fixable. You can break a photon and then you can remake a photon, and polarizing film proves that. So if you think you only have one photon, that's just you thinking so. Doesn't mean you know how many other pieces of a photon you have in the environment. And that's always been a flaw with their reasoning. They're only counting the ones they see and say those are photons. Any one I don't see isn't a photon, which is the nonsense. So maybe the paper is actually getting to that point where it's recognizing that even when there's only one photon, there's not just one photon. There's lots of pieces of photon.
Individual photons traveling towards the slits. And the odd thing is now that the photons, which are particles,
I mean, if you can do that, then you can aim the targets and hit them from one, go through one slit, go through the other slit, and so you can defeat the whole logic of this silly experiment by just doing that.
build up an interference pattern one by one. This seems to show that a single photon also behaves like a wave.
So bullshit. This is just bullshit. So I don't know. Now, where did this get proven?
Must go through both slits and interfere with itself. That light behaves both as a particle and a wave is
so I guess where are you going to get to the paper that's saying that's not true?
often called complementarity. So far, so good. Not that it makes sense, but we've gotten used to it not making sense.
So again, more of this crap. No, that shouldn't. You should never get used to things that don't make fucking sense. Oh, fuck.
The authors of the new paper now say we've got it all wrong. Light is all particles.
Good.
It's just that there are both light photon states and dark photon states.
Oh, frickin' fuck this bullshit. Dark photon states. No, there's in phase and out of phase.
The dark photons can't be detected, and that's why there are some light and some dark spots on the screen.
It doesn't, this doesn't mean anything. The dark photons can't be detected. Then they're not photons. There's some other form. There's something rudimentary, what the photon is actually made out of, the substance it's made out of. So the photon is a pattern. The photon is an event. And you can have the broken event, not a photon, or the event, right, in a photon. So it's stuff coming, but if it doesn't happen in an order, in a sequence, a very specific sequence, the stuff is going to happen regardless. And all photons are is it's put in the right sequence that now it can cause the tipping thing to happen. Oh, damn. But it's not a dark photon.
The dark spots are where the dark photons go. One of the authors told New Scientist, according to our explanation, we just need the particle aspect of light. The new thing about their treatment is...
So I don't know why this can get published, but I can't get anything I wrote published.
That they don't just calculate the probability of a photon arriving at a particular place. In their calculation, they include a simple model for a detector, like an atom, that can absorb a photon and calculate the probability of...
So this is just, now they're just calculating crap. So there's just nothing. This is just speculation again. And it's not even going to be diagrammed by just showing the pattern. I just have to show you these two patterns, and the game should be right over right now. Because if it's true that their math actually does predict these patterns, and that it actually does tell you exactly how many of these little dots will be created, and there's no way around it, the math demands it. There's no way around it. This is the base. The distance is creating the base of triangles you're creating, and you're just saying when is the hypotenuse and the side, when is the hypotenuse a wavelength longer. And it can only happen a certain number of times depending on how big this space is. And that's it. There's nothing else to the story. This isn't some infinite pattern.
Of this detector detecting something. In the normal treatment, one doesn't do that. They then take this...
And that's the experiment they've never done either. You know, theoretically in their wave theory, there should be photons that go, almost this 90-degree angle. So they should be able to detect them way over here. And they've never even tested that, as far as I know. Never even tried the experiment.
State of the quanta in the light apart into those that will make a detector light up, that are the light photons, and those that won't. Those are the dark photons.
I mean, it's just stupid. What is a photon to these new guys? What is these guys suggesting a photon is? I'm telling you, a photon is just a sequence of events. That's all it is. It's just this. It's just this. Oh, you can't see that. It's just dots. Morse code kind of. This would be a red photon, and this, okay, would be a blue photon. It's moving in this direction. Well, it has a polarization, so I didn't draw it exactly accurate because it comes at a sequence, and that's provable with antennas. As the electricity moves up the antenna, it fires, and so the photon comes off a little bit out of alignment, but perfectly parallel. And that's all it is. It's a dot, dot, dot. It's three events. Let's just say there's three elements to a photon. And when those three elements hit a surface, dot, 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 they cause the atoms to basically create electricity, to eject an electron, to move one.
The relevant...
Oh, yeah, I've got to put that back on. This is so irritating.
point is that these dark photons are not just vacuum. They're part of the quantum state of the laser light.
Oh, quantum. Yeah, what does that mean? The quantum state of the laser light. It's just such baby talk. What's happening in the universe is electrons interact with a discrete force that exists. Okay? The photon is made out of the discrete force. The electron moves in the space, and every time it moves, it either absorbs those little force bits and gains momentum, or it reflects them. So when it's pushing this way, it's reflecting. So anything coming at it, obviously as it's reflecting it and moving, it's going to increase the frequency. The frequency is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. And anytime it's moving away, the frequency is going to get lower and lower and lower.
By the way, this video comes with a quiz that lets you check
this
how...
every video, right? She's still doing this crap. Quiz with it. Oh, it's just so cool and fun. Oh, God. Who the fuck likes quizzes? Who?
much you remember. That said, while their treatment is genuinely a new way of looking at the double slit experiment and the maths looks fine to me, I don't think the interpretation makes sense. For one,
oh, the interpretation that, yes, it's really physical. And it's a physical universe with physical things that happen, interactions that are real, and there aren't a bunch of ghosts floating around.
one thing, both the light and dark states of photons still go through both slits. So I think it's misleading that...
So, I mean, again, it has nothing to do with going through a slit, because obviously an impediment causes the same fucking pattern. So it's not about anything going through a slit. It's about a fucking surface. The surfaces cause the phenomenon. All the photons obviously aren't affected. If I make the slit really wide, a single slit, 99.99% of the light will go straight the fuck through, and none of it will be causing fringes, a tiny, tiny percentage. So a big giant aperture creates a tiny amount of percentage of the light is fringe, and so you'll never even see it because it's such a tiny percentage of the light compared to the amount that went straight through. And the smaller and smaller and smaller I make the aperture, the higher and higher the percentage changes from the light that goes straight through to the light that gets affected by the surface. And obviously there's a point where it's half the light, and then there's a point where it's 80% of the light gets affected by a surface, because it's frankly the space is more surface than it is opening. It's just so obvious how this works, and if you give it any fair consideration as being a real physical universe and coming up with a real logical answer instead of this mushy nonsense. And it's just so obvious when you do the experiment. You'll notice that, hey, if I make the slit wide, the center maxima gets so bright I can't see a goddamn thing. Now, why would that be? Oh, obviously because those photons are not getting fringed anymore. Oh, Jesus. Alright, should be back.
The authors say it's all about particles. The other thing is that, like in the...
Oh, yes, well, I'm sorry. The authors are idiots, and I'm sorry these simulations are crap. Again, this is not the double slit pattern. This isn't even a single slit pattern in photons. It's pieces of crap. It's distracting nonsense. It's garbage. It doesn't even create one little dot and then 5 dots and then 43 dots. That doesn't even happen. The fact is by your wave theory, all of these dots should be the same frickin' intensity. So they don't even have an excuse for why the intensity degrades. Because frankly, it shouldn't by their wave theory, because the same energy goes that way, it goes that way, that goes straight ahead, that goes that way, that goes that way. So again, the whole thing is just such bullshit.
normal treatment of the double slit experiment, the energy of the light that goes to the dark regions is 0. Again, that supports the...
So again, the energy is 0. So there's something in the universe with movement but 0 energy. I mean, why do you believe this crap? Why? Why do you believe that?
Interpretation that those dark states aren't anything like particles. However, that doesn't mean the idea is useless, because that treatment with the light and dark photon states, odd as that sounds, is mathematically more general than the usual treatment in which one...
And it's still all wrong, because it doesn't really account for the actual effect, which is the fringes are being created by the surface, and the more dominant the surfaces are regarding the total area of the photon's exposure, the more likely it is of photons going to get fringed. And that fact should just be so obvious that this is just about a surface phenomenon. It's just about photons that travel near a surface where there's a bunch of moving electrons. And that's the entire experiment. That's what's causing the effect.
One relies on this wave interference. There are cases...
I mean, they actually think there's something called a surface made out of atoms. No, there's no fucking such thing as a surface, okay? Surfaces disappear when you go microscopic and you look at real atoms. There's no surface anymore, there's just electrons. Electrons are always on the surface of a surface.
Where the usual interference approach wouldn't work, but their approach would. And the authors propose several experiments to study this. They also say that understanding the distinction of...
Look at this crap. What the fuck is this mush? I mean, really, you fall for this. They show you this mush and you think the universe is really doing whatever the fuck that is. You can't even draw it. And you got 100 billion neurons, and you can't even accurately draw that. And yet you're going to say the universe and the most elemental parts of the universe are doing that. Yeah, they have all those special capacities.
Light and dark states can improve the storage and transmission of information because you don't...
Oh, and then they're going to turn this into information nonsense and encryption nonsense. Oh, it's all bullshit. Why don't you just say the word quantum computing next? Is she going to do it? Is she going to say quantum computing?
want to dump information into the dark states where you can't receive it. Honestly, when I read the headline, I thought this is
Dark photon theory of light aims to tear up a century of physics. Well, you really have to tear up 3 centuries of physics. You haven't done anything right since Newton. It's just a fact. Everything since then is garbage. And it's mostly Bohr's fault. Okay, and half Einstein's fault.
bullshit. But having read the paper, I think it's a matter of framing. This is a genuinely interesting new way to think about an old experiment.
Well, it's a stupid way because it still involves wootons. And it doesn't acknowledge the true pattern. Well, she didn't actually take extracts from the paper, so maybe they actually know there's a double slit pattern that has the envelope pattern and has a double maxima and it has all of these features that they can't explain. They have no explanation for the double maxima. They have none. And they certainly can't explain the envelope patterns. They can't explain the 2 patterns because they can't figure out how obvious it is that, oh yeah, when you bring 2 slits together, what do you change? Oh yeah, this is what changes. This distance here. Whoa, look how far apart these 2 surfaces are. Oh yeah, that changes everything. It's so fucking obvious in hindsight. It's just idiotic that, in a world of whatever it is, 8 billion people, shit, nobody can figure this shit out. Oh, damn it.
But I don't think that talking about dark states of light is going to make quantum physics any less confusing.
Yeah, well, there it is. I mean, that's just baby talk. Silly thing to say. They should have said broken photons. That would have been so much better. Just to say they're broken. The pattern is broken. They're still hitting the surface with little bits of shit. But they're not hitting it at the right sequence so that they don't cause the atoms to create electricity, and therefore there's no photon. We see photons because they create electricity. Shit. It happens.
So they told you that no one understands quantum physics. I think that's wrong. It's
There's nothing to understand. It's the silliest rubbish baby blah 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 blah. I mean, it's like nobody understands the Wizard of Oz. Come on. Yeah, we found out it's all a rig. It's the man behind the curtain. I mean, there's no wizard. God damn it. But they still had witches, right? Which is still bullshit.
totally understandable. You can give it a try yourself.
So, fuck that. Yeah, we're done with that. It's just so bad. Whoring for the money. Clickbait, bullshit, shit, nonsense. So anyway, terrible gutless cowards. I can go all the way back to the beginning where she was totally ignored on the internet, and she was running a couple little different businesses, and one of them was call up a physicist and get help with your homework for $50. And I tried to sign up, and I made it clear that I want to record it. Okay, but they wouldn't let me do that. That's the bullshit of it. They're all such weaselly cowards. It's disgusting. I say I'll pay double. No, they wouldn't do it. And obviously, since then, I've offered her $2,000 at least. I think I might have offered her more than that, but I know I did at least the $2,000 offer. And nothing. Not even a response email. I mean, they're just such despicable shit as human beings. Scientists. Yeah. No, they're just fucking bishops and ministers and preachers and all that kind of crap. They're just part of a disgusting hierarchy of crap. Fake heroes. Alright, anyway. God damn, I hate this planet. really, there's just no more counter arguments possible. I am correct in this analysis. This is a surface phenomenon. It has nothing to do with photons getting randomized, every single photon getting random. No, none of that's happening. It's a mechanical process. Photon interacts with surface. Surface has electrons going in and out. Photon gets bent. If the electron's going in, the photon ends up, a piece of it goes that way. If the electron's going out, a piece of the photon goes that way. So there's a bunch of scattered bits coming off of each surface. And the little scattered bits hit the surface. And there's a 50-50 chance they're almost in phase or almost completely out of phase. Those are the only two choices. There is no third choice. There's almost in phase or almost out of phase. And that's it. It's that simple. No interference, no superposition, no entanglement, no wooical, no interfering with itself. None of that crap has anything to do with reality. And I just can't believe all of you dupes prefer that shitty answer to the logical, sensible, rational answer. But you're garbage. You're just human garbage. So of course you just keep doing what humans do, which is find some fucking totem pole to bow to and shove up your smelly butts. You disgusting creatures, really. Stupid fuckers. Yeah.